Hi, I'm Stephen and welcome to Audio Nautica. This is a VTA ST-120 valve amplifier, and today I'm going to give you a review and in-depth tour of this amplifier. What if you're someone who is interested in getting into valve amplifiers, kind of likes vintage amplifiers, but is worried about the risk of a vintage valve amplifier? Well, this amplifier is a way of getting a brand new vintage valve amplifier, because essentially that's what it is. This design is an upgraded version of the VTA ST-70, and the ST-70 is basically a modern implementation of the Dynaco or the Dynaco ST-70. So the original ST-70 came out in 1959, and the chassis is exactly the same. This chassis is identical, apart from this gorgeous stainless steel that it's made out of. If you look at the chassis, you can see that it's faithful actually to the Dynakit. It even has the Dyna company name on the chassis, so it's the same chassis. But as I said, it's a modern reimagining or a modern implementation, if you like, as to how this amplifier would have been built in 1959 if they had some of the modern things available that we have. So this amplifier can be purchased either as a kit. I purchased it as a kit, or you can purchase it fully assembled. So certainly if you don't have any experience in making electronics, I certainly wouldn't recommend that this is the first kit that you try to build. You'd certainly want to learn on something simpler than this. I didn't think it was especially difficult to build, but then I worked in a factory making electronics. So as I say, if you have no experience, you don't really want to learn on this, but you can buy it fully assembled. So this is really a way of getting a brand new vintage valve amplifier. So the ST-120 is basically the same deal as the ST-70, except that it's upgraded in power. So it has a larger power transformer, it has larger output transformers, and it supports larger finals. So it's designed for KT88s, but I've got KT120s in mine. So KT120s rated at 120 watt plate dissipation. So these things are really loafing along at a quarter of their rated power output. So the thing that really appealed to me about this amplifier was good power output. 60 watts a channel. That's really great power for a valve amplifier, and I did a lot of research into various kits and various things, and you know, there's quite a lot of valve amplifiers out there that, you know, they might be rated at 10 watts a channel or something like that. And I just thought if I was going to go to the time and expense of building an amplifier, I wanted something that had decent power. So I didn't have to worry about having super efficient speakers. Now, as it turns out, I do. I'm driving my JBL studio monitors with this amplifier. This is my main amplifier at the moment. So I can't actually even come close to putting anywhere near the power out that this amplifier can, because if I put 60 watts into those JBLs, I and my neighbours would certainly know about it. But this is a great way to get an amplifier that is good quality, good audio quality, classic valve amplifier with also good power output. So if we just have a quick look at the schematic diagram, you can see how incredibly simple this thing is. There's really not very much to it. There's the finals there, shown as KT88s. There's your output transformer. There is your speaker. And then here we have our driver stage is here. So basically a couple of 12 AU7s or equivalents. There's a few different options as to what valve that you can put in there. Valves is what we call tubes in Australia, by the way. And then it does use some modern equivalent parts in terms of, you've got this LM334 here, and there was a selenium rectifier in the original Dynaco design, so that's gone. You can have either a tube rectifier, a valve rectifier, or you can put in a diode bridge if you want to. It's entirely up to you. There's your power transformer. Power transformer is order time for what mains voltage you have. So I've got the 240 volt power transformer. The bias is set using these 4 trim pots here. Set the bias, but there is an auto bias option that you can order. There's also an option for a attenuator volume control, which I didn't go for in mine, but it is available as an option. So this is your driver board, and this is the real part where you see the modern reimagining. You know, instead of the horrid phenolic boards which just deteriorated. I mean, if you bought yourself an original ST-70, you'd basically have to rebuild this board. So here is a gorgeous modern board on FR4 with proper solder mask, so it looks fantastic. Then on the front, we've got RCA inputs for our line in, and then these octal tube sockets. In this reimagining, they're used to measure the bias. So there's one there, and the opposite one, I think it's that one. Those two there is your left bias, and then the same on the other one for measuring your right bias. So that's supposed to be done every 6 months or so. But I've had this amplifier for 5 years now, and I found it pretty stable. I found it absolutely fantastic to listen to. So let's just have a look at the other side now. Okay, so here's the rear, which is really quite simple. Just our speaker outputs, and on-off switch, mains, cable, and fuse. So that's all that there is on this side. So just before we pull this thing apart, what can I say about this amplifier? Well, it's everything that you would expect, in my opinion, with a valve amplifier. I mean, it has a valve amplifier sound, so it has that mellow warmth about the sound. But the great thing about this amplifier is that it has the power behind it as well. Sure, being a valve amplifier, you're not going to get the punch that you might want for, say, you know, rock and roll and so on. But I certainly find it thoroughly enjoyable to listen to, in everything that one would expect of a valve amplifier. Certainly if you were to buy off the shelf an equivalent, you would have to pay far more than you would pay for this kit amplifier, even if you were to buy it in its constructed form. You'd pay a whole lot more in price if you were to buy one off the shelf, a similar amplifier. So in a tick, I'll just pull it apart so we have a closer look inside. But just before I do, just one thing to note. So when you buy the kit, obviously you get a great big few boxes of parts. The chassis comes in one box. These transformers are obviously another critical part. Now, these housings of these transformers do look fairly rough the way that they come. So it is recommended in the instructions to paint them. I'm an electronics guy, not a painting guy, so that was the part that I found hardest. It's not an absolutely perfect job, so if you were wanting a showroom finish, you'd need to do a better job than what I did. But I think it's acceptable. There's just a few little blemishes and marks here and there. But the trick for having to paint these transformers is that you basically have to take these screws out, because you don't want to paint them, right? Because you want to be able to spray paint the whole thing. So what I did is I took these out, not all at once obviously, because it would fall apart then and that would be really bad, but take them out. And then I bought from like a specialist hardware shop, I bought a length of threaded rod, a long threaded rod, and nuts to fit on the long threaded rod, and then cut it to size using the cutter that doesn't destroy the threads, and put lengths of that in there, put the nuts on, and then put like spaghetti tube tape over it, and then sprayed it. And then once it had dried and I was happy with the finish, take that out and then put the original ones back in. That's how I did it anyway. There might be a better way, but that's what I did. So let's get this baby apart and have a look inside. Okay, so here we are. So just before we dive into this, let's just have a look at this. Absolutely gorgeous Tungsol KT-120. So 4 of these. They can be operated in either triode mode or pentode mode. Triode mode is supposed to have a little bit more of a supple sort of a sound, I think. I've tried it in both modes. I can't really pick that much of a difference myself, but the option is there. So this is the underside of our VTA ST-120. I guess one of the reasons why these kinds of things were so popular, even as a kit form, but also in mass production, is that they were generally speaking pretty forgiving. You could really have a dog's breakfast of wiring under here and it would still work. This is a great thing about audio frequency, is it's really pretty forgiving. You don't have to worry about the kinds of things that you have to worry about when you get up to megahertz. So, which is why it's not uncommon to look at some of these vintage valve amplifiers and see that the wiring is indeed a dog's breakfast, because it's cost to make it look nice and pretty underneath for no real reason. But of course, pride in workmanship is important as well. Now, whilst I have experience in electronics, I didn't really have any experience in doing wiring looms. So I kind of did this as neatly as I could, but it certainly could be better. But I tried to keep this main loom here. Tried to keep that sort of kind of neat and tidy, but you can see little things like up here, this could be a little bit neater. These could be cable tied together, but they're not going to go anywhere. I mean, the wiring is generally wired point to point, which is the way that it should be, and tried to keep the wires more or less no longer than they needed to be. So this gives you an idea as to what it looks like underneath. You've got like these little tag strips here with components soldered on them. Then back of this is the back of the switch that switches between pentode and triode mode. So there's 2 of those, 1 for each channel. And then here's the underside of our KT KT88s or KT120s, that's where they go. And then this is the underside of our printed circuit board. So this is really the big difference between this and the original Dynaco ST-70, that this was all phenolic, and it just didn't hold up that well, especially under heat. So this is far, far, far better, and hopefully should last longer than what an original ST-70 did. So you can see that there are a few components on the underside. So these are an option. These are the Russian coupling capacitors, super duper high quality. So I decided to go with those as an option. So this is what she looks like inside, and I'll just turn her back over just so we can have a look at the top side of that printed circuit board again. This thing's very heavy, so that's why I've got the towel there. And so there we are once again. And you know, for me, I thought this was the easiest part to construct as a printed circuit board, because the all the positioning of the components and so on is taken care of for you. So it's much easier to get it kind of neat, whereas that wiring loom underneath requires a lot more effort to make it neat. But certainly, if you're going to build a kit like this, really you do need to have a decent soldering iron, certainly a semi-professional, probably a Hakko. I think you can pick up Hakkos reasonably cheaply on Amazon or around the place. I have one of these Thermaltronics soldering stations, which is a little bit more professional. They're not especially expensive, but I really like that. But a Hakko or something similar would be fine as well. And then also the trick to getting this circuit board neat is one of these. It's just a piece of plastic, but it's for getting the leads on the components bent correctly, and it will result in a much, much, much neater job. And obviously this is worth nothing. You just pick one of those up and it makes it so much easier. So there we are. This is a VTA ST-120 modern vintage valve amplifier, 60 watts per channel, KT88 finals or KT120s if you wish. And it's a wonderful way to, either in kit form or in built form, to get yourself a grunty valve amplifier and enjoy the bliss of a vintage valve amplifier that is not vintage, that is in fact brand new. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up, please subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to reading your comments so much down below. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye for now.